So in this video, I'm going to be introducing Thunkable. Thunkable allows you to create your own apps that can be used on iOS as well as Android devices. So if you have an iPhone or iPad or even a Samsung Galaxy or Google Pixel or any Android device, any app that you make on Thunkable will be able to be used on those as well. So first off, the first thing you need to do is you need to sign up for an account. If you have a Google account, then go ahead and click there. That's usually the easiest way. For me, I already have a Thunkable account, so I'm just going to log in and I'm going to sign in with my Google account. Now, once you go ahead and connect this to your Google account, you should be able to go right in. Now, these are a list of all the projects that you're working on. So for you, if this is your first time in here, there will be no other projects. There will only be this create new app. So whenever you want to create a new app that you can use on your device, you would click on create new app. So if I click on that, it's going to pop up and ask me to name my project. So I'm going to go ahead and just name this example, and then I'll put the date. I'll put 2021-02-01. Okay, and then you can pick a category. There's different categories in here. Since today, I'm just making a very simple introductory app. I'm not going to put a category in there. You can make it public. You can make it private. Preferably put it on public, because if you put it on private, you would have to upgrade it and you'd have to pay for it. And we're not going to pay for it today, so we're going to make it public so everyone can see it. And then we'll click on create. Now, it might take a second to load up. It's creating your app, and this is your screen that you're going to see. Now, before you feel like you're overwhelmed and confused just by looking at this for the first time, I want to walk you through and show you how, I guess maybe not easy, but how everything's laid out in this setup in Thunkable. So the first thing I want you to realize is you have this screen in the middle, right? They purposely put this in the middle. That gets your attention. You look at this is what one of the screens in your app is going to look like. Now you can add multiple screens by clicking this button, right? I could add a second screen. Now notice when I click that, a second screen popped up here on the left. If I only want one screen, I can go back and delete it, right? So let's say I just have one screen. If I ever wanted to add additional screens to my app, I could add that right there. Okay? Now, know that your app will always show up what you want it to look like. The way you want to actually design it is in the middle of your screen. Okay? As you go through, you will look through a bunch of components as well. Components are anything that you have inside of your app. So if you had a button in your app that you wanted users to click on, you would just look over here on the left under the components. Now they've organized these components. The first few ones say user interface. Those are ones the user can see and react to. If I minimize that, if I minimize all of these, right, they've put these in different categories. And if you're ever looking for a specific component, you can actually search for it. So I'm just going through and I'm just clicking all of them so that way you see all the different categories. So if you ever wanted to look for a specific component, you could click in here and type something, but right now you probably don't know of any components. So the user interface, you can click on and scroll down. There are buttons, labels, text boxes. Most of these you will never use, right? You have some layout ones to make them look nice, some voice ones, text to speech, right? If you want to add images in your app, if you want to add a camera function, how to store data, location, how to track, location sensor, maps, right? Other types of sensors, timers, connections to social media, right? Being able to sign in, and then also how to make money off of your apps through ads, right? So most of these components you will never use. In this video, we're only going to use 3 different types of components. We're going to use buttons, labels, and text input. Okay, and the way you would use it is you would grab one of your components, you grab this button here and drag it and drop it onto my screen. Now I've added a button to my app that someone could click on. If I want to change the text, everything on the right are the properties of my button. See how button's highlighted over here? So if I want to change the text of the button, I want to change it to like submit, right? Changes it right there. If I want to change the text color, I could click in there. I don't know, change it to yellow, right? It's a yellowish color. And then the font size, you can make it smaller. It's 18 right now. If I put it at like 16, right? Notice it's smaller. Or you can make it bigger, say like 24. I'm just going to put it back at 18 where it was. You change the background color of the button. And these are all properties of the button. These are all things we can change later on. You don't have to change these. You can put it however you want, but that's how you would add a button to the screen. You literally just pick it up, drag it, and drop it. Now, if I don't want one of these buttons, like I just created button 2, right? I can click on button 2, and then I can delete it. And even if I wanted to rename a button, if I look on the right, it said it was called button 1 originally. I can rename it and call this like, I'll say like submit. Okay. And you can name it whatever you want. You can change the picture, the height, the width, all the properties are on the right side of the screen. So really, if you're taking a look at this, this is how you would design your app in the middle of the screen right here with the phone that pops up. These are all of your components on the left. Once you drag and drop components onto your screen, they show up over here in the top left. And then if I ever want to click on one of my components, like the submit button here, all of its properties show up on the right. Okay, so this is to design it, your components, and the component's properties. So if I were to drag, like, let's say a label over here and drop it, a label pops up. And I can change it to, I don't know, let me just say, enter your name. Now, labels, you cannot edit. The user cannot edit that actually in the app. A label is just something that shows up. The difference between a label and a text input, I'm going to go and I'm going to drop it right in the middle right there. This is where the user would actually click on in order to edit it, right? So, I don't know, let me just take out the hint that's here and make it blank to start off. If I wanted to test my app right now, I could click on live test up here in the top of the screen. If I click on live test, I can see my app in real time. Okay, so it says enter your name. If I were to click in there and type in like Mr. Danza. Okay. Now if I click submit, let's say I just want anything typed into there to disappear. Nothing really happens. I haven't programmed my app yet. I've only actually designed it the way I've wanted it to look so far. And it's not very sophisticated right now. But if I ever want to test my app and see what it does, I can click on live test. Another way of doing it is by clicking on preview, right? And I could do that and say submit. Now, if I want to go back to editing, I can click up here in the top right corner so I can edit my app. The preferred way is to click on live test, or the best way is to download the Thunkable app on your phone or iPad or any sort of device that you have, is to actually download the app on your phone. And by downloading the Thunkable app on your phone, you can test your app, and it's usually the best way of doing it. Okay, so remember, if I want to just recap this real quick, the difference between a label and a text box, a text input. my label, I can't actually do anything with it, right? The label just shows up and says something. I can't change that text. But a text input, I'm able to click in there and type inside of it, kind of like a text box. So a label, the user cannot edit, but the text input is like a text box, and the user can edit that to whatever they want. Okay? So right now, I haven't actually programmed my app, but I've used a button, a label, and a text input. All right, let's say that I want to program my app that every single time I type in Mr. Danza, right? Let's say every single time I type it in, I click submit. This clears out and then says hello and then Mr. Danza or wherever they typed on the bottom. Okay, so I need to add another label. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag another label and we drop it at the bottom below there. And it might not always show up where you want it to, so you might have to drag it and drop it at the bottom there. I'm going to take all the text out of the label so nothing shows up right now, and it's kind of like hidden almost. But notice I have my top label, and maybe I'll just say this is, I'll call this my top label, and then this is my text input. So I'll call this my, I'll say enter text, right? And then down here, the very bottom, that's my submit button. So my top label is at the top. My enter text is right there. That's the name of it. My submit button is right there. And at the very bottom, I'm just going to call that my bottom label. And you can name it whatever you want. I'm just naming them these things. And notice that it's important to name these all in one word, like bottom label, submit button, enter text, top label. That's just good practice. A lot of programmers do that just so that way they're able to understand and read it easier. Okay? So as you go through, you can click on each one. You can edit the properties if you want. If I want to go to the submit button, I could click on it, right? And let's say I don't want that text color. Let's say I just keep it. Let's actually make it white. Oh, it looks like it's white right there. And then the background color will be, I'll make it blue, right? And you can make whatever color you want. And the text, let's change this again to white, right? Is it actually blue? That looks more like a purplish color, right? Maybe we'll make it this color blue. All right, so it's going to say enter your name. If I live test it right now, right, it says enter your name. And even if I type in my name and click the submit button, nothing happened because I haven't programmed it yet. But I want a program to do two things. When I click the submit button, I want it to clear out all of this, and I want it to put hello, Mr. Danza, or hello, Joe, or whatever name I put in that bottom label down there. Okay, so the way I can program it and make that actually happen is by clicking up here where it says blocks. Okay, so you have your design view where you can design it and make it look really nice. And then you have your blocks view. And your blocks view is where we would program it. You can just navigate back and forth, design and blocks. So just remember, design view is for making it look nice, and the blocks view is for actually programming it. So what we want to do is we want to program the submit button. So I'm going to click on submit button down here. Now, if you look, there's a bunch of different categories and things you can click on. Right now, we're just going to make this as simple as possible, and then I click on submit button down there at the bottom. Remember, your button might be named something different, and that's okay, but I named mine submit button. Now, if you look at the very top one, it says when the submit button is clicked, do something. So that's the one I want, because when the submit button's clicked, I want to add a few things. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to drag it in here. So when the submit button is pressed, I want to change the bottom label. Okay, remember down here we have our top label, we have our enter text, right? We have our submit button, and we have a bottom label down here that's empty. I want to change that bottom label to say hello and then say the name. So I want to change that bottom label. So I click on bottom label, and I want to click on this one, from bottom label set text. We're not getting text. Some of you guys might accidentally click on this one, not that one. From bottom label set text. So I'm going to click it and drag it, and I'm going to click it right in there, right? So that way you can hear the click sound actually as you click it together there. If you drop it and it's like over, let's say you drop it over here somewhere, that doesn't do anything. And it kind of is grayed out, showing that, hey, nothing really happened. So if I drag it and drop it in there, it has a click sound and it shows that it's actually connected. So when the submit button is clicked, so basically it says the bottom label, I'm going to set the text to, what do I want to set it to? Well, I'm going to set it two different things. I'm going to say text, and I'm going to join two things together. So I'm going to grab this thing that says join, I'm going to drag it out and click it right here. Now at this point, you might have no idea what's going on, and that's perfectly fine. It will all make sense here as we walk through this. Okay? Right now we're joining two things together. We're going to join hello, and I'll click space. I'm going to drag out this world, and I'm going to drop it inside this trash can, and that will delete that. If you want to delete something, you can drag it in the trash can. And then what I want to do is I want to actually take whatever the user typed in here into enter text. So I'm going to go and find enter text, click there, and I'm going to say from enter text, get text. And I'm going to drop it right in there. Okay, remember to use from enter text, get text, and not set text. Notice how this one fits perfectly in there, but this one doesn't. It's a different shape. Okay? And then, so right now, if I were to run this, right? If I want to live test it, I click on live test. And I don't know, let me say Mr. Danza, your name Mr. Danza. Click submit, and it says, hello, Mr. Danza. If I were to like reset this and say, all right, enter your name Joe, click submit. It says, hello, Joe. So half of my program is done. I wanted to actually have that show up, but I also wanted to automatically clear this out every time I clicked submit, because it's annoying having to click backspace a few times, right? So the second thing I want to do is that when the submit button's pressed, I want to be able to make, when I click this button, I want to make it so this line entirely disappears, so you can't see Mr. Danza anymore. Okay, and the way I would do that is I go back to blocks, and I want to, remember, I'm going to clear out my enter text, right? So I go to enter text, and I say from enter text, I'm going to set the text to blank. Now you can leave that the way it is, or I can click on text here and find this little block up here that basically says, hey, put this nothing. I could type something in there if I really wanted to, but for right now, what's going to happen is when I click the submit button, it's going to add together hello and then whatever I typed in into the bottom label. And then for the enter text, right, I'm going to set the text to blank. I'm going to reset it. I'm going to go ahead and live test it and see what happens. Right, so Mr. Danza. So this should do two things. It should do two things when I click the submit button. It should put hello Mr. Danza down below, and it should clear out everything that's in this text box. Let's go ahead and try it. And it did it, right? So if I say like Joe, right, and click submit, it worked. Well, I clicked it twice, that's why I didn't show up that time, right? Joe. Or if I say Jane, right? and everything shows up right there. So that would be the best way to go through and test it right now is the live test. The very best way is to download the Thunkable app, and you can see all of your changes in real time. But for this opening tutorial, I just want to show you guys the button, the label, the text box. There are so many different components that you can play around with eventually, and we'll be messing with them in a few weeks here. But if you look at these first three, the button, the label, and the text input, right, you should be able to navigate and be able to at least drag it and drop one on your screen, okay? In the blocks, once again, there are so many different categories that you can look at, and a lot of this stuff might be confusing right now. That's fine. You don't have to mess around with any of that. Right now, you only needed to actually click on the submit button, right? Be able to drag that out and make sure all these are clicked in there. Right? So your code should look something like this when you're done, right? So you can design your app, make it look however you want. If you click on like screen 1, I could change the screen's background color, right? Maybe I change it to like this like mint green looking color, right? I could do that. And then I live test it. Right? I could do that. Let's say I wanted to like bold, enter your name. I could click on enter your name. And I could scroll down and say font weight, right? I could put the bold if I wanted to, right? That would be something I can do. And you can play around and make it look however you want. Okay? So that's the awesome thing about Thunkable. It allows you to make your own app without actually doing a lot of coding. You're really just putting blocks together and make it look the way you want to. So I enter my name, Mr. Danza, click submit. It says, hello, Mr. Danza. All right, so this is just a very easy app. Doesn't really have much of a practical application, but you can go through and recreate this. So this was just the first video in learning how Thunkable works. Feel free to continue to look through these other components and play around with them if you would like. But for right now, the only things you need to know are about the button, the label, and the text input. The biggest difference between the label and the text input is that the label, right, the user cannot edit the label. Right? If I click in it, I can't do anything to it. But a text input, I can click inside of it and actually type something, right? And when I type it in there, it actually shows up. So there's also buttons. So labels, text inputs, and buttons. Buttons are things you can click and make things happen. All right? And that's an intro video to Thunkable.